thank you. All right, everyone. Hey, before I get started, isn't all the speakers have been awesome, right? Let's hear it for all the speakers today. It's been great. And I will make this claim. This is pretty bold, but even though all the speakers have been great, I can actually say with all honesty that this presentation right now will be the most exciting, informative, and inspiring presentation that I will do all day today. All right, explain that joke to somebody next to you, okay? So anyway, as Matt said, first of all, I'm so glad to be here and feel privileged to be amongst the other speakers. I do have my two business partners with me here today. I'd like to recognize both of them. Let's see, you said green. There we go. If they'd stand up, Don Russell and Dean Bedagowski. Both of those are my equals, my business partners, and we couldn't run a successful operation. In fact, this last week we had a real test of our business, in that Dean was gone to a wedding and family vacation for 2 weeks in Europe, and boy, that workload on Don and I, we just couldn't handle it. So when we talk about luxury short-term rentals, it is a lot of work. Josh was up here talking about hospitality houses or retreats and so forth. Think about us as kind of that big retreat, but a small version of that, a house version of that, same type of thing that he's doing, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And it takes 3 people really working full time. And we do work in our business. I usually put in 12 to 14 hours a day. Fortunately, my kids are grown, so I don't have to be father right now. Otherwise, I couldn't do it with all the time that it's required. So, Don's got a great background in HR, which will really help us as we grow and maybe have to get employees or more 1099 contractors to work with. Dean's got a great background in advertising and sales. And Dean's job is really pivotal. He's really the one that interfaces with the customers all the time. I mean, it's a 24/7 business when you think about it. People go to booking platforms all times of the day or night, and we want to be responsive. We want that to be a real competitive advantage. And because these are high-end rentals, high-end, a lot of money that they're paying for these places to stay, then we need to provide them with like concierge level experience right from the start, right from the first time they engage with us. So it really is a time-intensive business. So we're not your passive investors right now. We are the active investors that then bring on passive investors that can benefit from what we're providing, this 24/7 service. A little background on myself is that I was a teacher and coach, went into corporate America, done a lot of real estate deals. I stopped counting. I just thank God and praise God for every one of those real estate deals. And then now I have a YouTube channel. I'm working with a company with crowdfunding. I believe the gentleman up here was talking about crowdfunding. I'm doing one of that specifically designed for real estate that we can use for our own deals and other deals. So if you look at that long list, the reason my list is longer is because I'm older than the other two. So it means I've done a lot of stuff, and because I'm really, really old. The last couple of things to point out on there, well, there's the condo development, which is all new and scary to me. To me, that means that I'm growing, and that although I've been doing real estate a long time, if I'm doing something that scares the crap out of me, I'm growing and I'm expanding, because if you're not scared, then you're not pushing yourself to limits. So the last thing on there, or one of the last things on there, was book of memory. So I've done a lot of real estate, like I'd said, but have migrated to this point now in my real estate investing career that we really want to focus on these areas. And that's after having exposure to, like I say, a lot of different real estate. So in doing so, my journey to here is very similar to my business partners here. It's not like we were like all of a sudden an epiphany or a dream, or after a prayer, all of a sudden this thing came to us as like, oh, there's a market for luxury short-term rentals out there that's not being met. Wow, what a great opportunity. I wish we could say that. It was more like I did a flip. It took too long. The contractors were messing up, and I wanted to make a little extra money before I flipped it. So I rented it out, and it was a luxury house, and instantly it was a success and brought in a lot of cash. All right. The bad thing is that I didn't pick out that house as a luxury short-term rental. So it was in an HOA, it was in a subdivision, and my success of all these people wanting to rent it became a nuisance to the neighbors that complained. And then I had to talk to the mayor about it. Well, you know what? I'll just shut down that house. It's no big problem, no problem, because there was no policy, no clear policy in that municipality. Dean had a similar experience when his sister needed to sell a very nice, luxurious home, and the market wasn't moving. That was a couple years ago. It wasn't really moving in that area at that level. So he, again, having some background in training, we have some similar training with short-term rentals. He decided to short-term rent it, and instantly that was a success. Such a big success that someone decided to have a party of a couple hundred people, and that one got shut down. Again, that's because it wasn't specifically purchased for that. So we've come together with our joint experiences, and it's like, wait a minute, there is such a demand for this. We just need now to find the right properties that it's conducive to these large experiential, gatherings. So that's where we've come together now with bookamemory.com is our website. And I submitted this business model to an organization that's putting together a series that's going to be on some of the streaming channels in the fall. And Kevin Harrington, who's original Sharks from Shark Tank, he's hosting it. We've met with Kevin. He did a little promo video for us, and we're really excited about that launching. So let me click on to here. So go ahead and play the first video.
Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington, an original shark from the hit TV show Shark Tank. I have a question for you. Have you ever tried to book a luxury home for a family celebration, or maybe you tried to book a corporate event and you were trying to use popular short-term rental booking platforms, but you got turned away because they don't allow gatherings? Well, I have, and it definitely surprised me when it happened, because this could be affecting tens of thousands of companies and people each year all around the country. And until now, there were very, very few options, if any. Now, I do have great news for you, though. StayKVK is a unique company that has solved this problem. They welcome the opportunity to host events, parties, or family get-togethers in one of their luxury properties that are memorable, to say the least. Now, if you're having difficulty finding a venue to secure for your important event, or you just want to stay at a large experiential home, you should immediately take the following steps. If you're involved with a family event, go to bookamemory.com right away. If you're working on a corporate event, go to bookamemory.com/retreats. And I just want to say that I have met with the management of StayKVK, and their focus is all about providing a hassle-free booking experience in one of their fabulous homes, and they deliver. I just want to thank you for listening. Kevin Harrington here.
Thanks, Kevin. So we've what's cool about that opportunity is we've been able to work with what's called his A team, people that he uses to market, advertise, PR, and so forth, and helping us develop and expand our brand and our investments. So this is the bookamemory.com website. You will not hear me say we have an Airbnb. That's like saying, Kleenex tissue or Scotch tape. That's a name brand. I don't want to promote Airbnb and VRBO or booking.com. I want to promote bookamemory.com, right? And so even though right now we're on those platforms and instantly our business is, profitable, but what we want to do is promote our own. So number one, they're not getting the big chunk, their fees out of it. But two, what if they change the regulations or change the rules or change the fees, right? We don't want to be a slave to those channels. And this could be the next Airbnb, VRBO. And what we like to say is where those sites end, that's where we begin. Most of those sites, you can't even book on it for more than 16 people. We want 16 to 20 people because that's in our business model. So whether you're looking at this as a passive investor doing it for something else, or hopefully you'll see this information today and say, oh, maybe I'll do that myself. All right. The only thing I'll caution you about is this is a highly work intensive business. So just know that, but it's a great way to make profit for you if you want looking for us or somebody else to partner with. So we really want to cater to those. The big thing is corporate retreats. and weddings are huge for those in some of our larger venues, but also vacation events. I mean, if you think, who would rent that? Because a lot of people said that, who would, because when I show you the location, they're outside of any major metropolitan area. So what we're not is a vacation destination, all right? Our average stay last year, we've had one property a year and a half now, our average stay is 2.7 days. So basically that means they're renting it 3 days, which makes all the sense in the world. 1 day to get there, get settled in and prepare for the event. The next day to have the event. The next day for their hangover and, getting out of there and just the nucleus family, staying there and then leaving, right? I mean, that's it. That's our business model. And there's such a demand for it. It's amazing. So here's one of the first ones we launched about a year and a half ago, a little place called McHenry, which is about an hour outside of Chicago. And people said, even our people in our real estate investing community, like, what are you doing? McHenry, what's out in McHenry? My response is, the house is what's out in McHenry. That's what's going to bring them there. It's the family get together. It's, again, think of a family event that you've had maybe in the last couple of years, and we've hosted probably that. We've hosted the weddings, the wedding receptions, the rehearsal dinners, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the celebrations of life after a funeral, after prom parties. I mean, you name it, we've probably hosted it there. We even had a NFL draft party. When they're getting drafted by the NFL, they have a little party with their friends and they're hoping to get a call from the NFL teams. We even had somebody stay there as an NFL draft party. So this is just kind of take a look at what this particular house looks like. It's nice, it's luxurious. This is on 7 acres. And again, we want to make sure that we're not successful and then all of a sudden we have to close it down, right? So this house is the only house that's a business next to it. So we have a relationship with the stable, the person that runs that stable. We could have bought that with the property, but we don't, what do we know about horses, right? So we just refer them business. On the other side, the closest house on the other side, we have what we call a proximity partner, which is basically like we treat them like a partner. They don't have ownership of the home, but we treat them like a partner. We pay them very well, and they help us keep an eye on the property and run over there for little needs that could just be, I don't know how to use this remote. Can somebody tell me how to, it could be as simple. They got to change the batteries. So we've got somebody there to do all those type of things. We launched it about I think we closed first or second week of November 2021. What was happening at that time? COVID was still on, right? It was still on. So we launched during that time. And the first month, I think November might have been like 11,000. December was actually better than that December that's up there. So the next December might have been 25,000. But this is the first full year, so you can see it. It's only a month and a half into it. But look at the numbers. This is for a single family home. If you look at, and I'll show on the next slide where the total is, look at that top line. We averaged over 25,000 a month with one single family home. I know there's a lot of people that love the multifamily, business, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's pretty cool to have the same kind of income with just, one house and maybe, one water softener and maybe 2 or 3 furnaces, and that's it. So anyway, that was what we achieved. And then if we look at this and people say, well, what, how busy are you? Now, July is one of our busiest seasons. Last year, to hit that number, and I think it's on the next slide, it's like $333,000 we made brought in the very first year on that property. And I'll show you what we netted on that. We went an entire year. They said, well, what's your, 330,000 units there. We had it booked like 80% of the time. No, 55%. Okay. And I don't know that we'd ever want it that much, but here's what's exciting, I think, about our business model is that when we go from 300,000 and we just increase it another, let's say we get 55 up to 75, so much of that will be profit. It's ridiculous, right? Because we've already covered the mortgage. We already covered our insurance. We already covered the taxes. And the cleaning fees, that's passed on to the guests, right? So basically the next 200,000 that we did, let's say even 150,000, probably 125,000 of that is all profit, right? So it can really, really get crazy over this next year. So this is how we structure it. We try to keep things very simple. We call this the equity partnership model. This is how this deal was done. So if you look at that, the lines aren't coming through very much. There should be lines going through that, but it's not separated. It should be in quarters. All right. So this particular deal, 25% of the ownership of that LLC is myself, 25% is Don, 25% is Dean. And then the other 25% went to what we call the equity partners, people that brought in the startup capital, the down payment, the reserves, and all the capital that's really needed to get the business launched. Okay. Now we use, a lot of people are talking about what? Private money lending, right? We had a private money lender that first we offered to be an equity partner. They could not get their head around why would anybody ever rent out in McHenry? They didn't get it. So he said, okay, why don't you just be the bank for us? And then you can get a guaranteed interest rate. They're like, okay, we'll do 80% of the purchase price. We'll go ahead and do that. So we have a private, it's hard to read in there with the dark blue there. It's easy on my screen here though. So that's the private money lender. That could be an opportunity for a self-directed IRA in this particular deal. Now, it happened to be, a family fund. They didn't use the self-directed money, but that could have easily been self-directed money, right? So that's that business model. And then here's what we did. We always do a pro forma to see what we think the property is going to do. Here's what's interesting. Did a little bit of work here. And the numbers, and we put them in big categories where it says monthly pro forma and the annual pro forma. See, there's a lot of zeros in there because we just lump that together kind of at the beginning when we do these pro formas. But after a year, you can see how close the pro forma was. In fact, the annual income, the pro forma was 288,000. We actually did 311,000. Okay. Now on the profit down at the bottom, we were projecting a little bit more. We were projecting the pro forma at 152. It looks like we did 127. So the pro forma, we were hoping to do 19 cash on cash. We did 16% cash on cash. But also when we do this, it's not just cash, and we pay out, quarterly. So there's a quarterly cash. That's what's coming to them. And then also, of course, there's the other benefits, like the first one here, appreciation. At 5%, I'm going to show you down below, appreciation could get crazy here. But let's just say the average home in that area increases 5%. The debt pay down, because we had a 15-year AM loan, all right, 15 years, not 30, 15. So we're paying it down quicker. So that's another 3% in the first year. Every year it's actually going to we're going to pay less interest. So that's actually going to increase. Now here's where it can get crazy, all right? You had people, and you've heard things about, cap rates and about, multifamily buildings and all that is great, right? They say, well, when you're buying a house, you're buying it and the value is based on the comps around it, right? So we bought this house, not as a business, not as a cash flowing multi-unit. We paid what the houses were comparable around it, only $810,000. We put in another 40,000 in improvements, expanded bedrooms and so forth. So we have 850 in total. All right. If you evaluate this as a business, the amount of value that property would be at a 7 cap is almost $2.9 million. Think about that for just a second. We paid $850 for a property. We infused a successful business model into it, generated cash that now would equate that business, that property and that business, if we did want to sell it, at a 7 cap at 2.9 million. If you say it's a 9 cap, we're at 2.2 million. So if you look at like one of our partners, for example, that, by the way, one of the partners in this deal is a client of directed IRA. And he put his self-directed money in there. Remember, we used a private money lender, right? So he will have the debt tax, right? There'll be a little bit there that he'll have to pay, but we didn't have to personally guarantee it or anything. So, he was able to use a self-directed IRA. But look at that. Because talk about forced appreciation. It's kind of the best, right? You're buying it comparable to other houses, but you sell it. We could sell it, let's say, to another operator or someone that wants to run this as a business. Look at it based on the cap rate. All right, this is just another property that we recently acquired. It's on the river. It's not quite as big as the other one, but some of our clients, like this one, was a corporate client. They were coming in to do a solar project, and this one, Dean negotiated, was at $22,000 a month. So From month one, $22,000 a month, no vacancy factor whatsoever. Boom, lock that in. So he negotiated that. Another thing that Dean did was that he negotiated insurance losses. Think of how many people may have a total loss of their home, where they put them in hotels. A lot of these insurance policies pay quite a bit. We had a smaller, modest home that we were managing, we didn't own. What did you negotiate on that? What was it? 12,800 on a very modest 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bath home. So those are also clients that we serve. Now, this one was done a little bit differently. Again, we're missing the X line going right down the top there. But in this one, and how do we determine how much equity we give to the people putting in the money? Well, we really kind of reverse engineer that. We want to make sure that they're going to get at least 10% cash on cash that we can deliver to them, quarterly, every single quarter. And then we see, well, how much percent of the profit would they have to then get in order to achieve that? So the first one was 25% to those people. This one you can see at 30%. We just did another one that we end up giving up 40% because we want to make it attractive for the people that are providing the capital. Okay. So very similar business model. This is one that we recently purchased. We've had this for about a month, kind of our crown jewel so far, 14,000 square foot home. We just, launched that recently. Has 2 pools on 2 different levels with a swimming pool connecting them. Go ahead and show the video. All right, we can go ahead and stop. Can you stop the video? I think it's perfect. Ooh, that's a nice house. Amen to that. It certainly is. Yeah. And it's, talk about a fun asset class, huh? Now, if it's your self-directed IRA, you won't be able to stay there. But if it's not, you've got some opportunity to stay there. And this is just our pro forma that we work out. I want to make sure I'm true to my time here. But anyway, we do the same thing. We work out a pro forma based on that, figure out how much equity we need to give up in order to make this attractive to people. This is how we did that. We did this with a DSCR loan, debt service coverage ratio loan. So this one, we don't have anybody with a self-directed IRA, this particular, but we're open. Every deal's different. Every project's different. And we're open. Believe me, we're very much into creative financing. This is what it might look like if somebody said, listen, we want to finance it where it's one or multiple people and they want all their self. Believe me, we'd love to get rid of the banks out of this equation. All right. So this might be a way that we just, use self-directed IRAs to fund the entire project. And then we can give more return on that. And that could either be done like this, where their equity partner is getting a piece of the action every time and getting all those other benefits. Or there's enough profit to give a very high interest rate on a loan because we won't have to give up any ownership. So we could pay a pretty darn good return if someone wanted to be a private lender on a deal like this. So those are all options that we could have. And the ones that we've got one under contract now that's right outside of St. Louis. Since I'm short on time, I probably won't show you the whole thing here, but this is on like 145 acres. That this could be a multi-million-dollar business. This could become the resort, that Josh was showing there because of the amount of land. there's not any mountains in Illinois, but this is as close to a mountain in Illinois that we have right outside of St. Louis. It's beautiful, and we could do tiny houses there. We could go glamping. If you're not familiar with that, that's glamour camping, glamping. We can do that. We've got weddings. There's a huge pole barn there with even living quarters inside the pole barn. There's a guest house. This is just a fabulous property. You can't tell, but that's up high on a hilltop, looking down. There's about $300,000 we've been told in forestry and wood that we could sell off as lumber, clearing out spaces for us. Could be used for hunting. So we've got all of those things that give another great shot right off of the Mississippi. Like I say, less than an hour outside of St. Louis. So there's some more pictures there. We won't play the video because I want to be true to my time here. Which